Symmetrical all-wheel drive. Details at SubaruofNewEngland.com.
We the people of the United States.
We're going to unite this country and show the world who we really are.
You got to get out and vote because they're going to destroy our country.
In order to form a more perfect union.
Biden is the candidate of layoffs, lockdowns, and misery. I am the candidate of jobs, vaccines, and prosperity.
Two visions.
Two choices.
Will America stay the course for 4 more years or go in a different direction?
We choose hope over fear, unity over division, science over fiction, and yes, truth over lies.
A nation divided by red, blue, and undecided, united in our right to vote in election 2020.
It is 6 o'clock on the dot on this election day. A live look now at the polling station, one of them in Salem, Massachusetts. Not necessarily all that packed, which is maybe a sign of the times. A lot of people did the early voting or mail-in ballots this year.
Exactly. A lot of early turnout. But the first polls in the 2020 presidential election close in just under 1 hour. So things are going to start heating up. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jackie Bruno.
And I'm Tim Caputo. We are here all night long as it takes. Midnight, beyond, who knows, once all the votes are counted. Maybe not all the votes are counted, but tonight, mostly. Bringing you all the complete coverage of this race for the White House and some of the other important races, too. The Senate, the ballot questions, all of it. The candidates, though, the presidential ones at least, making some last-minute campaign stops today. President Trump visited the Republican National Committee Annex office in Arlington, Virginia, to lots of cheering and support there. And Joe Biden started the day with a stop at a church in Wilmington, Delaware, and then went off to Pennsylvania, the all-important swing state of Pennsylvania.
And while the presidential candidates wait for all the countdown to the polls to close, there are a number of races all across the country. And here in New England, we are watching them very closely as well. We have a team of reporters spread out across the area covering every aspect of this historic election. And we want to begin the head-to-head matchup in Maine for the Senate seat there. Look at all those reporters. But first, let's get to Maine, where Susan Collins and her Democratic challenger, Sarah Gideon, are facing off tonight. NECN's Dustin Wojtkowski is live from Bangor with more on Collins' push to try and keep her seat. Dustin, this has been a very competitive election for her.
Absolutely. I mean, Senator Collins has been in office for about 24 years, and the polling in this race a week out was a statistical dead heat from Colby College. So it's really anyone's race tonight. We're going to have ranked choice voting factoring in. So if you're an impatient person and that happens, well, you may be waiting for another week or so until we finally know who wins. In terms of closing arguments, Senator Collins is saying this race is really about her. It's about her time in Maine, her time in the Senate. She's sticking to that theme of her campaign this year, that this choice Mainers are making on sending her back to the Senate is about her individual record. Not President Trump, not national issues. It's about her willingness to work with Democrats and Republicans, funding she's brought back to Maine over the years. Think battleships at Bath Iron Works and PPP business money. For her, many of her supporters this year, that argument's working. She's the same senator they've known who's simply in a more difficult fight for the first time in a while because of national politics.
I think she is a victim, quite frankly, of the atmosphere in Washington.
It's a tough race for her this year.
I think she has a good record there and a good track record, and I think she's done a good job, and I'm sure that she'll continue to do a good job.
And we've been talking to political scientists all month about this contest, the different nuances with it. And the one thing that they've really said over the past few weeks is that Senator Collins needs split ticket voters, people who vote for Joe Biden and for her, a Republican. Those voters do exist in Maine. The question is, does Senator Collins get enough of them to vote for her to win re-election, Tim and Jackie?
Okay, thanks so much, Dustin. We also have Perry out there in Portland. We're going to get back to him in just a little bit, but of course we have both sides of that race fully covered throughout the night.
And the entire country really keeping an eye on Maine, because this could be an important decision when it comes to the overall Senate. Brian Shackman back with us now. You looked at some of the other potential important Senate races across the country. North Carolina, one of them, Alabama, another one. But Maine, a lot of people look at it. This could go from Republican to Democrat.
Listen, Maine is probably the biggest Senate story in the country right now, but we let Dustin take care of that, and I'll take care of some of the rest of them. Just a quick review. We get audiences come and go. I did this last hour, but right now the Senate is 45 for the Democrats, 53 for Republicans. The two independents caucus with Democrats. That makes it 47. So again, if Biden wins the White House, they will need to net 3 new seats to get control because the vice president would break a 50-50 tie. If President Trump wins re-election, they would need to net 4 blue seats to get control of the U.S. Senate. In this half hour, we're going to take a look. John, if you want to toggle for me, please. Thank you. Starting with Arizona, Mark Kelly and Martha McSally, high-profile race because Mark Kelly, former astronaut, American hero, basically. His wife, Gabby Giffords, was a congresswoman when she was tragically shot, not killed, but it was, of course, the gun reform was a huge issue surrounding it. So in terms of name recognition, it is huge for him. Martha McSally actually lost to Kirsten Sinema in running for Senate, and then when John McCain passed, she was named into that spot in 2018. So she's never actually won an election for U.S. Senate. And in terms of data points, where we stand right now, 6 points. He is up. So it's not a slam dunk, but it's outside of the margin for error. And this is a definite seat that the Democrats are banking on winning. It's definitely not a done deal, but it is looking that way in terms of the polling going into the election. The other one that's fascinating is Iowa. You would just think really entrenched, kind of red maybe, but no. Joni Ernst against Teresa Greenfield. And what happened here is that Ernst, I don't know if you guys saw the debate a couple weeks ago, and it's a question we would never be able to answer, but she was asked about corn prices. She said they thought they were talking about soybeans, and she gave an answer that wasn't even close, and it made her look really bad. And that sort of opened the door for Greenfield to tighten the gap. And right now, in terms of the Real Clear Politics, it's 1.4%. She's trailing, but this is a seat that Ernst won by 8.5% in 2014. So this is a definite toss-up. Greenfield, in terms of bio, homegrown Iowa farm girl, great backstory. This is a race to watch. Now, the last one I want to talk about is Georgia. And as Dave Paleologos talked about in the last hour, there are 2 Senate races in Georgia. The other one is just a little muddy, so we don't have time to go into it too deep. But you have John Ossoff and David Perdue. He's basically twice his age. Ossoff is 33 years old. Perdue made some news of late, and it wasn't good in terms of, I don't know if people remember when he was introducing President Trump at a rally, he mispronounced Kamala Harris's name, and he sort of made fun of her name, and he's in the Senate with her. He said afterward he didn't realize that he didn't know how to pronounce it, but there are 100 senators, so no one really bothers excuse. And again, that got him some negative news. Ossoff really went after him in the last debate between the two, and he has really closed the gap here, down 0.7%. That is just even more of a toss-up than Iowa, and this is a seat that Perdue won by 7.9%. Georgia is a state to watch in terms of the Senate, in terms of the president. If somehow this seat turns blue and Biden wins Georgia, that isn't quite the tectonic shift. I got a lot of flack for using that last night, but it is a major shift in Georgia politics if there's more blue than red.
Brian, $3.98 is the answer. That's the price of corn per bushel.
Yeah, and you knew that.
I had to Google it. I don't know the answer to that.
Just Google
but
that.
I feel like in Iowa, folks probably do know that. We don't know that here.
Yeah,
but both of them have campaigned that they're farm girls.
Yes.
So, of course, that's an important thing out there.
$3.98 and change on top of that. Brian, you mentioned briefly that Georgia thing. That's an interesting one. It's a runoff one, right? So somebody's got to get 50% in the Loeffler one in that special election. So that might not be something that's even decided tonight.
No, there'll be a runoff for sure in that. And there's multiple candidates. The favored Democrat has been really diluted by other Democrats being in it. So we just don't know what's going to happen on that. Maybe a little later if we have time. The other quick race I wanted to mention was Montana, Steve Daines and Steve Bullock, because Steve Bullock dropped out of his race for the Democratic nomination, and Chuck Schumer chased him down, had meeting after meeting to convince him to run for that race. In that race, he's trailing the Republican incumbent right now, but just by a little bit, and that's a toss-up as well in the state of Montana.
The battle of Steves in the state of Montana. Our Brian Shackman following all those races and all the national stories that have been happening. And like I mentioned, one big national storyline is in the state of Maine. We've been watching that closely here as well.
We certainly have. So let's get right up to Portland, Maine. That's where we find our Perry Russum, and he has been following the Gideon campaign as they try to, get these results in to see how they're doing tonight. Perry, how is everyone feeling out there?
Yeah, we met with Sarah Gideon earlier today. Her energy is high after this long race, but I think the people who live here are pretty tired about this race. We spoke with one woman after she voted, and she said, thank God this is all over. The commercials have been nonstop. $120 million has been spent on this race for TV advertising. One man told us he has not watched TV on purpose in a while just to get away from all of this. So let's talk about the results and what they may look like. There is a strong possibility that this could go to ranked choice voting. It's the first time it's being used here in Maine for a Senate race, and on the ballot, voters can rank candidates 1 through 4. So if nobody wins more than 50% of first place votes, last place candidates are eliminated and votes are then reallocated. And we actually talked to Gideon about this.
As you might know, I do support ranked choice voting, have both endorsed it and defended it in my time in the House. I think if we go to ranked choice voting tonight, then we will all be eagerly awaiting the results. But I do trust the system and our electoral process.
So if this does go to ranked choice voting, all of the ballots would have to be gathered, then sent to Augusta to be tabulated. That could take days to do. We are hearing it's possible it could take a week and a half, guys.
Thanks so much, Perry, for that report from Portland, Maine. We'll get back to him later throughout the evening as we watch that race so closely.
Let's take a skip over a little bit to the west there and head to New Hampshire, because not necessarily as close a race as we've been talking about in the state of Maine, but there are a number of races there that a lot of people are watching closely, at least within the state, maybe not nationwide.
Exactly. So let's talk to our Katherine Underwood. She is live in Bedford, New Hampshire, where people are actually voting there right now. And what have people been saying to you all day, Katherine?
Well, Jackie and Tim, the polls close here in Bedford in less than an hour. You guys, this is the scene we've been looking at all afternoon, but despite an empty Bedford High School gym, we are going to see record turnout here in Bedford and across the Granite State. And there are certainly some really tightly contested races here in New Hampshire. Aside from the president, believe it or not, Republican Governor Kristen Sununu is running for re-election against Democrat Dan Feltes. But one of the tightest races is for the 1st Congressional District, and it's one that's considered a bellwether race nationwide. That's because it's a swing district. In fact, Democratic Congressman Chris Pappas is running to become the first incumbent in 12 years to win back-to-back races in the 1st District. Pappas is facing Republican Matt Mowers. He's a former Trump advisor at the State Department, and he's been endorsed by the president. The latest polls do show Pappas leading Mowers, but even the former state Democratic chair admits this race is one to watch tonight.
1st Congressional District has always been, back and forth and back and forth. We've had it. And I think Chris Pappas knew from the very beginning that whatever race he was in was going to be close.
And let's take a look now at the Senate race in New Hampshire. Longtime Democratic Senator Jean Shaheen is seeking her 3rd term in office. She's running against Republican Corky Messner, who calls himself a political outsider and who's earned the president's endorsement. The latest polls do put Shaheen ahead of Messner by double digits, but we all know that those polls mean absolutely nothing as soon as the results start pouring in on election night. And those results could be in as early as 8:30 here in Bedford. And of course, as soon as we get them, we'll bring them to you live. But for now, reporting live in Bedford, New Hampshire, Katherine Underwood, back to you guys.
Thank you, Katherine, up in New Hampshire, where it should be kind of interesting as things play out. Here in Massachusetts, though, not just the candidates we're keeping an eye on, the ballot question is also important because there's 2 of them on the ballot today for voters in Massachusetts. I want to start with question 1 because numerically that's where you start, right? This is the right to repair question. Yeah, we answered this one in 2012, but this is kind of a new version of it. This question would require independent repair shops to have the same access to as car dealers to the vehicle's computer information to diagnose problems. Question 2, not about cars. This one has to do with ranked choice voting, actually has to do with elections. But if adopted, it would not apply to the presidential race. 2 big ones that take a lot of explanation, but it does seem like people are seeming to understand those better and better as we got closer to Election Day.
Yeah, and while the presidential race obviously brought out a lot of people, you got to wonder if those ballot questions are something that people feel passionately about as well. So let's get right out to Worcester, where our Brian Burnell has been talking to voters all day long. Brian?
And Jackie, have not asked them once about the ballot questions because the presidential election really does dominate things. No lines here in Worcester, at least not that we saw today. Poll workers here tell us there was a line first thing this morning around 7 a.m. It cleared up quickly. I guess early voting worked. Now consider this, after the last 4 years, would you consider not casting a ballot for president? As we come to the end of a long, contentious presidential campaign, it's a bit difficult to understand why someone would choose to vote, but not for president. Greg Opperman did just that, unimpressed with Joe Biden.
His only argument for president is that he's not Trump, and obviously I'm also disappointed with Trump. So, I basically came here to vote for all the down ballot races.
Most did come to vote for president, following a campaign that told us a lot.
It's actually exposed things that we probably didn't think was relevant or apparent. I think that it actually shows you a lot about yourself. You know what I mean? This whole process and seeing what has taken place and what we're willing to put up with and what we want to stop.
As we go to the polls, there is still concern about what happens if the night ends without a declared winner.
If it takes a few days, everybody would be nail-biting, I believe. Sometimes I fear that there could be upheaval and disruption.
Let's see if we can allay her fears at least a little bit. We talked to Joe Early. He was here earlier today. He's the Worcester County DA. He says that state police and local police are ready. They're mobilized. They're ready for whatever might happen, but they don't expect any trouble. In Worcester, I'm Brian Burnell. Jackie, Tim?
Okay, thanks so much, Brian. That's good news to hear that they're not expecting anything right now, but of course we'll be watching all of that as well.
Relatively quiet is decent news because all the early voting that happened.
Exactly, and a record 100 million early votes have been cast in this election. It's a lot.
It is a lot, and they will be counted, but maybe not right away. Just ahead on NECN, we're going to be joined by a guest for analysis on some potential voter issues across the country. Stay with us. Our Decision 2020 election coverage continues here on NECN.
Get more than just the headlines. Join Jackie and Tim as they take a deep dive into the biggest news of the day.
Here on the 10, we make it our mission to dig a little deeper.
10 straight minutes on the topics you want to know more about.
We want to take a second look at what ranked choice voting is.
Answering all your questions, even the ones you didn't know you had.
Man's best friend, maybe man's best tool in the fight against COVID-19.
Get more out of your news with the 10. Weeknights at 10, only on NECN, New England's Connection.
Did you know Massachusetts has over 14 million accounts equaling over $3 billion in unclaimed money, stocks, insurance claims, and more? Log on to findmassmoney.com to search for your name and see if you have unclaimed money waiting for you.
This snowplow season, your money's gonna work even harder because you'll get up to $6,000 total savings on a 2020 Ford Super Duty. With best-in-class available maximum snowplow weight. And you can fork over less taxes, too, with up to $1,040,000 in deductions on qualifying new equipment. Hey, you don't get snow days, and neither does Super Duty. During snowplow season, get up to $6,000 total savings on your plow-equipped Super Duty.
If your credit card debt is out of control, if you're in over your head in monthly payments, there's a secret the credit card companies don't want you to know. If you have more than $10,000 in credit card debt, you have the right to let us settle that debt for a fraction of what you owe. That's bad news for the credit card companies, but it's great news for you. We're Credit Associates, and we're offering you free information on how to completely resolve your credit card debt with a monthly payment you can afford. To see how much you could save, call now. 1-800-905-1069. Don't declare bankruptcy. Don't consolidate. Give us 10 minutes and we could save you thousands. After all, we depend on your success and offer a guarantee so there's no risk to call. Credit Associates. Live better, debt-free. Find out how easy it is by calling now. For the secret the credit card companies don't want you to know, call Credit Associates now and see how much money you could save for free. Call 1-800-905-1069.
Does your carpet look tired? Well, right now at National Floors Direct, get a whole room of name brand carpet, next day installation, padding, everything, all for just $333 and no interest for 1 year. Call 888-400-FLOOR. We'll bring the store to your door.
Well, the big prize on this election day is a house, a white one at that. You don't actually get to keep the house, but they do let you live in there for a couple of years if you win the presidency. A live look over Washington, D.C., because that's what the entire country is focused on this evening.
Yeah,
bid for the White House.
People are voting all across the country, but you hate to hear about any voter issues. And a lot of people are working really hard to make sure that there are very few of them.
Yeah, litigation seems to be coming up a lot this election season, both before the election and potentially afterwards as well. We've heard about the mail-in ballots, the ballot boxes down in Texas, too. So let's go to our Sue O'Connell with more on all the kind of legalese that comes with an election this contested.
Yes, we're certainly looking forward, and we're going to look back and see at some of the victories that the ACLU has had. Carol Rose from ACLU Massachusetts is joining me. But first, Carol, I want to ask, what have you been hearing from voters today? Have you been getting any complaints about maybe being ID'd when they shouldn't have been, or long lines? What are voters saying to the ACLU?
Yeah, so the ACLU is part of the Massachusetts Election Protection Coalition. So it includes, the Lawyers for Civil Rights, Common Cause, League of Women Voters, Mass Vote, ADL, other groups, and Demos. So that means that we have like 2,000 people spread across the state who are being the eyes and the ears, nonpartisan, people who are making sure that the right to vote in a nonpartisan way has been protected. And so far it's been really smooth sailing. There's still time for people to go to the polls. So if you want to go to the polls, you should check out ACLUM /vote, our website, and that'll tell you how you can find a drop box or how you can get to a poll still before 8 o'clock here in Massachusetts. But mostly things are running smoothly. We've had about 400 calls so far, and most of them are simple voter questions. But some of the sort of top issues that have come up, we had a report out of Hanson that people were being told they couldn't wear Black Lives Matter shirts or masks in order to vote, and the Secretary of State issued official guidance saying that, in fact, Black Lives Matter material is allowed within a polling place because it's not partisan. There's no candidate, right? It's not a political party.
Yeah, I was talking earlier today about how when I was a kid and I would go to the polls with my mom, this is back in the 60s, I once leaned a campaign sign that she was holding against the school where people were voting. And in those days, you couldn't do that. And I know it differs from state to state. So it is fascinating to watch everybody kind of learn the rules that their district and their states have about what you can and cannot do.
Yeah, no, that's really true. I mean, we're really seeing a strengthening of our democracy with all these people being involved, whether it's the high voter turnout or the people who are out being poll monitors for groups like the ACLU or the Election Protection Coalition. It's just actually really exciting and good news. The one kind of concern that we're hearing about, and this is not just in Massachusetts, but nationwide, are these robocalls that have been going on that are sort of telling people to stay home and stay safe for no reason. There so far has been no reason people should go to the polls. It is safe. And it's important that we all vote. That's the most important thing you can do in a democracy is to vote and raise your voice.
Right. So if you haven't
we hope people will go to the polls and keep at it.
That's what I was just going to say. If you haven't gone yet, you still can go. Talk about some of the victories that the ACLU has had already regarding this election season.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Nationwide, because we have an office in all 50 states, ACLU lawyers have managed to challenge in 27 different cases. We've managed to win the right to vote over like 20 different states, really fighting voter suppression tactics that some local officials are trying to put in place. Things like saying you can't use a drop box or you have to have somebody witness your signature, things that aren't really constitutional. And so the ACLU has managed to do that. And as a result, really hundreds of thousands of people are being allowed to go to the polls that might not have otherwise. And just yesterday in Harris County, there was, I think for the third time, a challenge by some local Republican officials to try to prevent people from doing a drive-through drop box so that people who have disabilities or are frail or sick or afraid of COVID would not have an ability to vote. So the ACLU was part of the coalition of groups that challenged that and managed to make sure, and that's 127,000 votes that are on the line there in Texas.
So what are you guys doing right now? What are you doing right now as we look forward to what we don't know will happen, right? But we do fear or at least anticipate there will be some legalities and some lawsuits. What's happening?
Yeah, so I mean, the ACLU lawyers, again, nationwide and here in Massachusetts, we're playing through various scenarios of if this happens, this is what the options are. So a lot of people have really learned a lot of the rules of the parliamentary rules of what could happen at the various stages along the way if the results are unclear. But so much just really depends on whether the results are clear and what we learned tonight, and not really tonight because we're not going to know, but really this week and over the next few days as the ballots are counted. And just remember, every vote counts. We want to make sure, for example, that people who are voting from overseas, the military service people who are certainly need to be a part of our democracy, that their votes are counted, and they may come in late, for example.
Well, Carol,
So
we will
wanna
leave
make
it
sure that
there, and I
every
know
vote
that you are
counts.
going to give the message that every vote should count. I appreciate you taking time out of the night tonight on Election Day to join us. Good to see you. Thanks so much.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Nice day today for the election. Cold, but
Sunshine out there, so I'll take the sunglasses, and it's going to get better every day this week, all the way through the weekend. Let's get to Pamela Gardner with a first look at your forecast.
Hey there, happy Election Day here on this Tuesday. We've had some rainy election days in years past. In fact, the last 5 years, 3 of which have been very rainy. The last 3 years, 2019, 2018, 2017 for Boston in particular. And then we had no rain back in 2016, 2015, none. Now this morning, we woke up to a lot of folks standing in line to go and vote with actually some snow in some parts of New Hampshire, for example. All of that has diminished and has gone away. So tonight, we're going to dry things out. But down to the south, we're watching a dangerous situation with Hurricane Eta as it is near stationary but making landfall across Nicaragua and producing devastating, catastrophic rainfall, 2 to 3 feet possible over the next several days here, as this is a devastating storm, and it will continue to move across the Yucatan here and makes a little loop, and we expect that to move out to sea, but the Western Caribbean, and it may meander enough and close enough to Florida by early next week, so we'll keep you posted on that. Tonight, we're down into the teens, 20s, and 30s. The wind relaxes, near calm with the breeze. Tomorrow, we're in the 40s and 50s. The wind picks up from the south, but these are some beautiful spring-like temperatures, a nice brief break from all the wintry weather we've had the last several days. And the wind from the south could gust, especially tomorrow evening, between 30 and 40 miles an hour, especially across higher elevations. But hey, high pressure and control, that means we avoid any rain and any snow for the next several days, as we see a cold front tries to move in for Thursday into Friday, but notice it fizzles out. So we don't anticipate any rain for the end of the week as high pressure takes over down to our south and to our west once again Saturday. We're going to see a surge of warmth. By the way, the 1 month forecast, we do expect things to be above normal for our temperatures in November. As for precipitation, we're going to be near normal with our rainfall, which typically Boston gets about 4 inches of rain, just about an inch or so of snow. Here's our 10-day forecast. Warm up on the way, 60s already by Thursday.
Okay, thanks so much, Pamela. And it is 6:26, and it's starting to get interesting, but in an hour, it's going to start getting a lot more interesting.
Set those egg timers you have in your kitchen. Like 33 minutes from right now is when a lot of the polls will close in a lot of different states, including Vermont. Actually, one of the first states that'll give their 3 electoral votes to one of the 2 candidates. I'll let you guess which one. And we'll also tell you what voters in the Green Mountain State are saying about this election. That and a whole lot more coming up.
I'm Greg, I'm 68 years old. I do motivational speaking in addition to the substitute teaching. I honestly feel that that's my calling, to give back to younger people. I think most adults will start realizing that they don't recall things as quickly as they used to, or they don't remember things as vividly as they once did. I've been taking Prevagen for about 3 years now. People say to me periodically, man, you got a memory like an elephant. It's really, really helped me tremendously.
Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
We did it! Wherever you start, SNHU is where you can finish.
Here we go. And it's it.
Yay! Southern New Hampshire University.
Like it's a hug.
Look at that! Master's degree! I did it! I did this for my children. I am very proud of myself.
Finish your degree at snhu.edu.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now to give you deep discounts, not just on my pillows, but also my mattress toppers, sheets, and so much more. For example, you can get body pillows regularly $89.99, only $29.99 with your promo code. With our 60-day money-back guarantee, you have nothing to lose. Sleep well, America!
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
Save big on auto service and tires and get ready for the New England weather ahead. You'll save instantly on Goodyear and Continental, General and Kelly, and more. And you can save even more with mail-in rebates on select major brands. Plus, right now, beat the winter rush and you'll get 10% off any auto service. But these offers are only through November 21st and only at Sullivan Tire.
Uh-oh, here it comes. We're ready. Are you?
All right, let's get back to our Decision 2020 coverage, and an interesting race because Jack Thurston, who covers Vermont, mentioned last night the governor who's running for re-election didn't really campaign. Didn't need to go out and campaign at all.
They didn't really need to. So let's talk to Jack Thurston out there in Vermont. He's in Williston, and you actually spoke to the governor today. Is that correct?
He made some big news, actually, Jackie and Tim. He is a Republican, a lifelong Republican, but he told reporters today that he made his first ever presidential vote for a Democratic candidate. Phil Scott said that he voted for Joe Biden. He has long said that President Trump is just too divisive for him. Phil Scott is really a unifier. He likes to bring people together of all sorts of diverse stripes, but he said that he has never liked Donald Trump for that divisive rhetoric that we've seen from him over the past 4+ years. And today, Phil Scott said that no, he just could not vote for President Trump, so he instead voted for Joe Biden. Let's hear from him.
I had never voted for a Democrat for president. So I had to do some soul searching, and that's why it took me so long to come to this point. As many of you knew, I didn't support President Trump. I wasn't going to vote for him, but then I came to the conclusion that it wasn't enough for me to just not vote. I had to vote against. So again, it's I had to put country over party.
Country over party, says Phil Scott. Now, it's important to point out that he has actually never supported President Trump. Back in 2016, Phil Scott was a John Kasich guy. He was torn this time. He wanted to possibly write in a former governor, a former Republican governor, Jim Douglas. That's what he did in 2016. He was considering doing that again this year. But as you heard him say, he instead chose to vote for Joe Biden. Tim and Jackie.
Jack Thurston up in Vermont. Speaking of, well, I wouldn't say foregone conclusions, but heavy favorites in races. Senator Ed Markey had that all-important primary in September, and now he's running in the general election, but it seems as though he's got a pretty heavy lead.
Yeah, let's get out to Malden. That's where we're going to find our Malcolm, and it's out there, and he's talking to voters, and he is live right now with what they're saying. This is very likely going to be a win for Ed Markey tonight.
And that is what is expected here, Jackie. I think Tim was good to catch himself there and saying, look, it's not a foregone conclusion, but there is no shortage of confidence within the incumbent's campaign and within himself. The 74-year-old, more than 40 years of political experience, has a sizable lead in this race to reclaim his Senate seat here and march on pretty seamlessly into what would be his second full term against the Republican opponent, that being Kevin O'Connor. We've got some video of what the day has kind of looked like for Ed Markey. It's been a long one. It started early this morning, and in some of this video, you might see him greeting voters over at the Lowell Mills Public Library polling location. That's out in Dorchester. We know that Markey has already cast his absentee ballot. As of this morning, Jackie and Tim, 55% of Democrats had already voted early, that being compared to 38% of Republicans. Markey's defeat of Joe Kennedy III back in September, well, that earned him some national recognition. And here, this is Markey country. In and around Malden, if you talk to folks, Markey is the hometown hero that many of these voters still feel good about.
I remember him from way back when he was an attorney. You know, walking through the square and stuff like that, and always trying to help us. And he'll listen to you if you talk to him.
He's a champion of the working class, Senator Markey. I think he's served us well the years that he's been there.
So we know that Markey was able to go out and vote absentee, as we talked about earlier. He is expected to address the voters out there sometime after the vote is called. We're live tonight reporting in Malden. I'm Malcolm Johnson.
Thank you, Malcolm. I wonder if Markey will be wearing those cool sneakers he wears in the commercials there. Let's talk about the underdog, because obviously Kevin O'Connor has a big uphill climb to be competitive and potentially win in this race.
Yeah, and Kat Sotnick has been following his campaign. She's in South Boston right now at a restaurant that he's expected to be at later. Is he having an in-person campaign event tonight, Kat?
Well, Jackie, he is, and O'Connor still has plenty of fight left in him. He'll be at the historic Amrines later on tonight in South Boston. And just a short time ago, he says he had to leave here to take a disabled voter to go vote and cast that last-minute ballot, referencing back to the fight that O'Connor still has left in him. And again, he'll be here later tonight, and this is a race that he is hopeful that he will win.
It's a passionate town. It's a swing town.
Kevin O'Connor greets supporters outside Saugus High School.
I feel great. I feel great. Really strong turnout.
He's a Republican candidate for U.S. Senator in Massachusetts, looking to unseat incumbent Senator Ed Markey. And he hit the campaign trail hard this election day in his final push to voters.
So I started in my hometown of Dover. I went to Wellesley. I went to Tewksbury. I went to Dracut. I'm here. I was in Billerica. So I've been, I think, 9 towns in total. I don't think I've included them all.
O'Connor calls himself a fighter with a law degree. He says the job of senator is to listen, something he says his opponent rarely does.
People want change. Senator Markey's been in office for 44 years. It's time for a change. We need new blood. We need unity, and he's a divider.
And O'Connor and his supporters will be here at Amrines around 7 o'clock tonight, and they're hoping that this turns into a victory celebration. We're live in South Boston tonight. I'm Katherine Sotnick.
Let's keep it in Massachusetts, because that primary election in early September had big implications on the election today. We mentioned Markey beating Joe Kennedy III. Joe Kennedy III's seat up for election this general election. And you had some people come out of the primary in September.
A lot of people come out in the primary. In fact, that is now kind of fueling this ranked choice voting situation. But now let's talk about Jake Auchincloss. He was the winner that night. And our Joylyn Nakrin is out there in Brookline right now, where people are voting, of course. And is there going to be an in-person event there, Joy?
Well, there's going to be an in-person event just a short time from now in Needham, but right here in Brookline is where supporters were gathered just a short time ago, and they are anticipating a win for the Democratic congressional hopeful Jake Auchincloss. We heard from him, as well as the Republican candidate Julie Hall, in this race for the 4th congressional district seat. Now, both are military veterans. They've been battling it out for the state's only open congressional seat, vacated by Congressman Joe Kennedy, as you mentioned. 32-year-old Auchincloss is a former Newton City Councilor and U.S. Marine captain who narrowly won a 7-way Democratic primary. 62-year-old Republican Julie Hall is a former Attleboro City Councilor and U.S. Air Force colonel. Both candidates say their military experience would impact their work, but they're certainly perceived very differently.
We need to work to rebuild this country, to restore Americans' confidence in our institutions, and to make progress on core progressive priorities, to fight for racial justice, to address climate change.
I'm, all about the American values and law and order. That's very important. I think this race is about that. A lot of constituents from different countries have reached out to me and said this is why they came to this country, for these values. And they're very upset to see them change. So I'm here to keep them from changing.
And of course, the polls are still open. The votes are still coming in. So we're going to keep watching this race, following all the latest developments. For now, we're live in Brookline. Joylyn Nakrin.
Thank you, Joy. As we get closer to the polls closing, how's your egg timer doing? Does it say 22 minutes from now? Because 7 o'clock is an all-important time on this election night, Jackie.
Yeah, we have been watching it closely, and we will continue to wait with you as we wait for results to start to come in after that 7 o'clock hour. Stay with us all night tonight here on NECN. We'll have all the reaction and results.
Because of this, we built Ford Super Duty to be the most capable heavy-duty pickup ever. Because of this, we built Ford F-150 with 375 horsepower. Because of this, We built Ford Ranger with the terrain management system. And because Ford trucks are built for this, you made Ford America's best-selling brand. During the final days of Truck Month, lease F-150 for $189 a month or get up to $10,475 total savings on select F-150 XLTs.
Could someone be stealing your identity or hacking into your phone or laptop? It can actually happen from across the room or from thousands of miles away. Or a company you trust with your personal information could be breached. Your information is in more places than ever. You need more protection than ever. That's why Norton and LifeLock are now part of one company, providing an all-in-one membership for your cyber safety. Norton 360 with LifeLock gives you identity theft protection, device security, a VPN for online privacy, and more. Cyber criminals keep looking for new ways to steal your personal information. You might not even know it until it's too late.
Someone filed my taxes under my name. $6,000 was sent to some anonymous person, some anonymous bank account.
They got into my bank account and my cell phone. What else do they have?
With threats all around, you need 360-degree protection. Norton 360 with LifeLock gives you all-in-one protection against today's new threats.
I've got two industry leaders coming together to help protect my identity and my devices.
Why not have that added layer of protection so that you can sleep well at night?
Join now and use promo code MyPromo to save 25% off your first year. All Norton 360 with LifeLock memberships include LifeLock Identity Theft Protection backed by our $1 million protection package and U.S.-based restoration specialists who will work to fix problems. Award-winning Norton device security for multiple devices. A VPN for online privacy, securing your connections whether you're on public Wi-Fi or at home, and more.
You never know where cyber threats are lurking these days. Don't wait to become a victim. Here's how to join.
Norton 360 with LifeLock. Call 1-800-440-6960 or visit lifelock.com/mypromo. Use promo code MyPromo to save 25% off your first year and get a free shredder with annual membership. Call now.
Welcome back to our Decision 2020 coverage. It is 6:41, and early polling, Tim, kind of gave Democrats, they should have been feeling good, but because of 2016, they may not have been feeling as strong, and things are very tight throughout the country, so Republicans have a lot to watch for tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting night to watch all that, but first, we want to take a look at the weather, because it is going to warm up all week, so no matter which side you're on, Democrat, Republican, if you're a winner or a loser coming out of tonight, we're all winners when you see this weekend forecast. Here's Pamela Gardner.
Hey there, happy Tuesday, Election Day here. Let's check out some of the records. For the Boston area, we did have a very warm Election Day. Back in 1936, the high was 75 degrees. The coldest, 1965 with 26 degrees. The wettest, 1985 with over 2 inches of rain. Average high for Election Day, about 56 degrees. Average low being 42. Today, we were around the average low with high temperatures in the low 40s, but of course, it felt much cooler than that. So we have one more day of cold. That's today. Then a big turnaround for late this week as we see temperatures on the rise. We're storm free too for the next several days, which is great news. Nice and quiet across the Northeast. Overnight tonight, lows drop into the teens north, 20s and 30s down to the south. Very subtle breeze from the northwest. That does diminish as the night goes on. Tomorrow, we're back in the 40s and 50s. Yes, we're warming things up already, but this is just the start. By the end of the week, we'll see some 60s and maybe even some lucky communities could hit the low 70s. 50 degrees across Concord, though. Rochester 48, Hartford 60 degrees already. And with the wind, it does calm overnight tonight, but the calm conditions will give way to some gusty winds for Wednesday afternoon as we get more sunshine during the day and as high pressure positions itself a little bit to our south and to our east. The winds will be gusty from time to time Wednesday afternoon and especially by the evening with peak winds between 30 and 40 miles per hour across higher elevations. Worcester Hills, the Berkshires, northern New England, just a few light subtle breezes. And high pressure, there it is down to our south. As this continues to head farther to the south and east and away from us, we see the surge of warmth because of that south-southwest wind. And a cold front slowly tries to make its way in for Friday. Good news is it's not going to bring any rain, and it's not really going to move through here. It actually diminishes, and really you're going to notice instead a warming trend. By Saturday into Sunday, temperatures in the 60s, so a nice weekend ahead with temps in the mid-60s both days.
Okay, thanks so much, Pamela. And again, there's so much to watch here, and Republicans, of course, are watching this very closely. So let's bring in Ozzy Palomo. He is the managing director at Chartwell Strategy Group, and he has been following all the Republican races very closely.
Ozzy, I want to start kind of chronologically here because we're closing in on 7 o'clock, but more importantly, I think for me, 7:30. That's when Ohio and North Carolina, the polls close there. How closely are you watching those two states specifically on maybe as a test as the rest of the nation?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me tonight. It's certainly been on edge and tense all around. With North Carolina reporting at 7 p.m., we'll get a good sense about where that state falls. And I think that state is critical to President Trump's path to 270, as well as Florida, which we've talked a lot about. You guys have talked a lot about as well. The 7:30 timeframe for Ohio is going to be interesting. Obviously, Ohio is a critical state, I think, for both parties. I've talked to some folks on the ground there throughout the day. They feel pretty, on the Trump campaign and some Republican House races, they feel pretty confident about the turnout that they've seen up until, a few hours ago. So.
And Ozzy, how are you feeling about that New Hampshire race with Chris Pappas? It's getting pretty tight.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting race. And early on, it was kind of one that was off of everybody's radar. I think Matt Mowers actually ran probably one of the better campaigns across the country. He was able to raise a ton of money, put Pappas kind of back on his feet. And I think he really closed it close in the last couple of days of the campaign. I know some of the debates were actually pretty forceful, and Pappas actually confronted Mowers on a couple of the things that were said out there. But the last poll that I saw in that race before Election Day had Mowers up 2, which was, I think it was a Times Union poll that had him up 50 to 48. So I think, again, it's going to be like every other race out there. Turnout's going to be critical, not just for both sides, but particularly for an upset in New Hampshire, one for Matt Mowers.
Let's stick with the turnout discussion right now. We know a lot of the early voting and mail-in ballot stuff has already happened, and we've seen some of the numbers with that, and a lot of it seems to be leaning more Democrats choosing to early vote. What have you seen today, if the majority of Republicans who are voting on Election Day? Are you happy with the turnout you've seen so far today, the numbers across the country?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly no doubt that Democrats made a real strong effort on the early mail-in ballot vote effort. That was their high propensity voters. We talked a little about that last night with Brian Shackman on that. I think Republicans are very happy about the turnout so far. I think that, as critical as that is, especially for the Republican side, it's going to be critical to sustain that in the long hours. And that's a lot of ground to make up. And I think, again, from a lot of the folks that I've talked to in some of these key battleground states are very happy with what's being seen both on the lines and some of the early exit polling. But again, it's going to be critical to see where a lot of the independents fall. We take a state like Florida where Republicans have an edge right now with total votes, kind of out there. But there's a ton of independents. So the storyline is going to be, if Trump wins those by 2, that's great. But if he loses them by 20, then that kind of spread is irrelevant. So it's going to be pretty critical to sustain that, into the last couple of hours of voting.
Ozzy, let me ask you the elephant in the room here, because on Election Day, I think there's this expectation that we're going to have a result, some sort of finality at some point this evening. Do you have confidence this will be wrapped up and we'll have in the presidential race a winner tonight? Or is this something potentially that could go on for potentially days?
Yeah, look, I think for President Trump to have an upset night, you're going to have to know that early. I think if he can, take Florida, take Georgia, take North Carolina, then he has a path forward to get to that 270 number. I think if the Biden campaign can come out and have a strong showing in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, take 1, 2, 3 of those, then it could be an early night. I think if the Trump campaign's enthusiasm, and they're cautiously optimistic, I talked to a couple of folks earlier, but if he's able to carry that through, we may have a trend and kind of an understanding of where this race is going to be, but it still could be about a day or two until, all the votes are finally tallied. So.
Okay, well, we'll start to see how things start looking very soon. Ozzy, I'm sure you're going to be watching it along with us.
Almost.
We'll check back in with you, too. Thanks so much for joining us right now.
Yeah, 13 minutes away from a bunch of states where the polls close all across the country. Maybe shortly after that, in a couple of them, we'll start seeing the results come in. It might not be immediate, folks. So bear with all these pollsters and people who have been working really hard to make sure all of your votes count. Stay with us here on NECN. Our Decision 2020 coverage continues all evening long, Jackie.
Yeah, stay with us for sure.
Xfinity marks the spot for NBCLX, a brand new channel featuring news and stories that connect people to their communities and to each other.
We've been addressing some pretty serious conversations, but now you're in the know.
The Xfinity Voice Remote instantly takes you to events impacting your world. Show me NBCLX. No more hunting or searching. All you have to do is say, "Show me NBCLX." X marks the spot. NBCLX on Xfinity, the future of awesome.
Did you know Massachusetts has over 14 million accounts equaling over $3 billion in unclaimed money, stocks, insurance claims, and more? Log on to findmassmoney.com to search for your name and see if you have unclaimed money waiting for you.
Whenever you see a lawyer bragging they got their client money, the question you really have to ask is, what was that case really worth if it was handled by a great lawyer? Look, $100,000 sounds like a lot of money, but not if you had a life-changing injury. You know who else knows this? Insurance companies. They know which firms are real and which will fold, and they hope you'll hire the wrong law firm. All law firms are not the same. There's only one Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
Got big dreams for the perfect home? State Street Discount can help you make it happen. We'll work with you to find the right products for any room and every budget. It's an experience you won't get online or at a big box store. State Street is a family-run business staffed by knowledgeable people who've been with us for decades. It's that friendly and experienced service that keeps our customers coming back. We love what we do, and you'll notice the difference.
State Street Discount. All you want.
Because of this, we built Ford Super Duty to be the most capable heavy-duty pickup ever. Because of this, we built Ford F-150 with 375 horsepower. Because of this, we built Ford Ranger with the terrain management system. And because Ford trucks are built for this, you made Ford America's best-selling brand.
During the final days of Truck Month, lease F-150 for $189 a month or get up to $10,475 total savings on select F-150 XLTs.
Vinyl flooring is luxurious and soft underfoot. Right now at National Floors Direct, get an entire room of luxury vinyl flooring installed the next day for just $788 and no interest for 1 year. Call 888-400-FLOOR. We'll bring the store to your door.
It's better than the Lombardi Trophy, better than Lord Stanley's Cup. The big prize tonight is the White House. Again, you don't get to keep the White House, but you get to live there. That'd be a fun place to live. As we watch the road to 270, Jackie, it is going to be an interesting couple hours, really starting at 7 o'clock and beyond, because this is when it starts to get fun for some people if you're into this.
Yeah, almost, though, be careful what you wish for. It's a lot of work, too, not just the bowling alley in the White House. But let's find out who will occupy that. To get there, you got to get, a few things.
It's a math game.
It's a math game. You got to get to 270. So let's talk to Brian Shackman because he is working all the different paths for either candidate tonight, Brian.
Although I would tell you, if I had the White House, I probably would change the bowling alley into a lap swimming pool. That would be my big move in terms of what I would change. But I'm not going anywhere near the White House, so I'm doing the map. I wanted to start off this conversation with the Battleground Map. And again, in terms of what's sort of in the bank for these candidates, it has Trump at 125 and Biden at 212. But you really don't want to pay attention to that because a lot of these so-called battleground states lean pretty strongly to red, like someone like Texas would totally swing that. But just take a look. You have the red is Republican, blue is Democrat, and the gray states are what NBC News right now considers battleground states. And I want to focus on Wisconsin and Michigan, and we'll go back to the 2016 map. This is the Clinton versus Trump map. Now, if we take all of this and we flip Wisconsin and Michigan blue, right, that gets us to 258 for Biden to 280 for Trump. Now, I just want to point out, I'm getting some anecdotal evidence from people I'm talking to in terms of consultants in the field. Say Michigan is actually, the Republicans are doing a little better than expected. So I'm not assuming it's going to go blue, but for this conversation, a lot of people think Wisconsin and Michigan will go blue. So then what does it leave us? What has to happen for Biden to win the White House from there? And then some of the states we've talked about this evening, North Carolina, well, what if Wisconsin and Michigan go blue and North Carolina does as well? That gets Biden to 273. He wins the White House. What happens? Again, another state that leans red but is in play is Georgia. If that goes blue, again, 274 for Biden. He wins the White House. The one that's fascinating to talk about is Arizona. Again, we think it's in play. Maybe it leans red. We don't know. But if that goes blue, we're 269, 269. That's a tie. Now, the people I talk to say this is a very low probability, but it is possible. And a lot of people want to know what happens if it's a tie. Well, it goes to the House of Representatives, and not every representative gets a vote for the president. It goes state by state blocks. And the early word is that favors the president actually a little bit. But then you have Nancy Pelosi, who is the majority leader. In terms of her caucus, she could do a lot of things with that. But that is pretty unbelievable if that would happen. Now, if you want to stay with the cocktail party, that means Wisconsin, Michigan, and Arizona go blue, and everything else holds to form as it did in 2016. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about, I'm going to stay away from Pennsylvania. One thing I will say about PA, with its 20 electoral votes versus Florida at 29, PA, there's not a one-state solution necessarily in terms of going over the top with the ones that we think are in play. You still would probably need to get 2, okay? But if Florida goes blue, you're at 261, and that opens up a whole host of opportunities for the Biden campaign. I mean, let's be honest, a lot of people feel that if Florida goes to Biden, the election could be over. Now, I'm not saying that's definitely the way it is, but if you have Florida blue and Michigan flips, just Michigan, 277. Wisconsin, same thing. That gets to 271. Narrow, but it gets them there. And obviously the same goes for Arizona, and it's 11 votes. That's 272. And you can assume Georgia, North Carolina the same. That is why Florida is such a huge prize. Again, leaning red, guys, but if Florida goes to Biden, it opens up just so many different avenues for Biden to get to 270.
We talk about those avenues and roads. You mentioned a bunch how Michigan and Wisconsin potentially could play a role. It blows my mind to think about 4 years ago, and obviously a lot has changed in this country, 32,000 votes between those two states is what Trump beat Hillary Clinton by in those two states. So when you talk about a toss-up, I mean, you're only talking 10,000 and 22,000 respectively between those two states, Brian.
Yes, and the funny thing about Wisconsin, and we talked about this last night, Clinton was up 6.5% in the polls going into it, and Trump won by 0.7%, and it was 0.3% in Michigan, which was the closest race in the country, and the second closest was New Hampshire, which was 0.37. So, and again, if you don't need to win many more votes, as Tim said, to flip those two states. But again, don't make any assumptions. There's a lot. Turnout is very confusing, right, guys? Because a lot of people initially thought huge turnout would favor the Democrats, but there's been a tremendous get-out-the-vote effort by the Republicans in the last month. And we're told anecdotally that it is making a difference right now at the polls.
Okay, well, how about Texas? That is one that so many people are talking about, and that could make it a, little bit longer night if it goes red, a much shorter night if it goes blue, and it's actually a toss-up right now. What are your insiders saying about that?
So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people will be shocked if it goes blue, but you're right, Jackie. If it goes red, it really is tossed out as the battleground state, and we focus on everything else. But if it goes blue, it's over. That alone, if 2016 holds true to form and everything else, and Texas goes blue, that gets Biden to 270 and Trump at 268, the narrowest of margins, but that would win it. Now, not a lot of people think that'll happen, but again, it is in play, and obviously we are, just a few minutes away from getting some of the results, or at least the polls closing in several states.
Our Brian Shackman playing with that touch screen. We love to see the work there, and as he mentioned, 3.5 minutes away from the first polls closing in the country. We might not get results immediately, but it is important to note the states that are closing. Vermont, their polls close statewide at 7 o'clock. Look, we're about to hit under 3 minutes. Does your egg timer still match up to that? There are 5 other states that also close at 7 o'clock this evening. So that's where we'll probably get likely our first numbers coming in.
Yeah, pay attention. Florida, Georgia. Georgia is very important and is actually a battleground state this year. So one we'll be watching.
Could be interesting.
Yep, as it closes in just minutes. So stay with us here on NECN for complete coverage all night long.
NECN, New England's connection.
Stay tuned to get a free crisper tray from Granite Stone. Why is it every time you go to cook a family meal, you have to search for pots, pans, and lids? Well, all that's about to change. Introducing Stackmaster by Granite Stone, the ingenious non-stick cookware set that stacks to fit all in one place and takes up a fraction of the space. Plus, each piece of Stackmaster cookware is pressed from a solid aluminum disc, then fitted with a stainless steel induction plate for even heat conduction and coated 3 times with our durable unforgettable non-stick granite stone finish that's so good, burnt on cheese, caramel, and chocolate just doesn't stick. Stackmaster is oven rated up to 500 degrees for outstanding roasting and baking. Plus, all Stackmaster cookware is 100% dishwasher safe and PFOA free. Look, you'd expect to pay over $400 for a professional quality cookware set. But during this special TV introduction, you can get the complete Stackmaster 10-piece set, not for $400, $300, or even $200, but for the factory direct price of just 5 easy payments of $39.99. And for everyone who calls or goes online to order today, we're going to drop one payment. You get it all for just 4 easy payments of $39.99. Stackmaster cookware is so durable it comes with a 10-year warranty. As a bonus, we'll include our self-draining fry basket, our stainless steel steamer insert, and our gourmet recipe guide, absolutely free. And there's even more. As a bonus, you'll get our granite stone crisper tray, the fast, easy, non-stick way to fry up your favorite foods. No grease or oil needed. Together, they're a $60 value. Yours free. That's an incredible 15-piece Stackmaster set, all for just 4 easy payments of $39.99. Plus, we'll